Okay, well, good afternoon and welcome to our virtual legislators panel. My name is Greta Geese and I'm coming to you here from Northwest Iowa Sheldon. And colleges have banded together to continue doing students. And so the student activities staff from all over the state of Iowa have partnered together to make sure that our students will still get to enjoy their college experience with fun and enriching events, even if we can't be there together in person. And that means that we have to pivot a little bit and offer them just a bit differently. And so I hope our students that are joining us today have been able to enjoy some of the enriching and innovative virtual events that we've been presenting thus far this fall semester. We do still have quite a few events coming up to finish the second half of the semester. So students, if you have questions or you're interested in hearing more about that, please contact your student life or student activities coordinator at your college for more information. And I know a lot of the colleges have also been putting those on their calendars, on their Facebook pages, and there's lots of ways to find out about those. So today we are doing our legislators panel, again, with the legislators, candidates, and our own Iowa Community College students. And so as we get started, I'm going to go over some brief introductions for our panelists. And all of these introductions, as well as the questions later on, are in no particular order. And panelists, when you hear your name in your introduction, will you just give us the little hi sign, a little wave, so that we can put a face to the name as we're going through. So just raise your hand and let everybody know that that's you. Maybe shout out to them here, maybe a little hi. First of all, we have Daniel Salazar. He is an education student from Muscatine Community College. Thanks, Daniel, for joining us. We have Carrie Wilkinson. He is a business administration student from Iowa Lakes Community College. Welcome, Carrie. We have Evelyn Falk. She is an administrative office management student from Hawkeye Community College. And we also have Jessica McKenna. They're sharing screens today. And Jessica is an occupational therapy student from Hawkeye Community College. And then for our panelists, our legislators and candidates, we have JD Schulten. JD is currently on the campaign trail. He's the 2020 Democratic congressional candidate for the 4th district, which includes North Central and Northwestern Iowa counties, from Grundy County to Sioux County. And in 2018, he was the Democratic nominee against Representative Steve King here in Iowa's 4th district, and fell just 3 points short in that election. And Joma, am I saying your name correctly? All right, good. Joma is also currently on the campaign trail. She is a 2020 Republican candidate for the Iowa State House of Representatives in District 98. She is running against Representative Mary Wolf, a Democrat who has represented Clinton since 2010. And I'm sure everybody would love their introductions to be a lot longer, but I had to shorten it up for the sake of time. We have Representative John Wills. John is here. Iowa State Representative from the 1st District, which includes Lyon, Osceola, and Dickinson counties here in Northwest Iowa. He has served on the Iowa House of Representatives since 2015. In 2020, he was elected to serve as the Speaker pro tempore of the Iowa House, and he also sits on the Administration and Rules, Agriculture, Appropriations, Commerce, and Veteran Affairs committees, as well as the Legislative Council. And we have Representative Chris Hall with us today. Chris is serving his 5th term in the Iowa House, and Representative Hall serves as the ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee and serves on the Natural Resources, Economic Growth, and Commerce Committees. And originally we had State Senator Zach Whiting of Iowa Senate District 1 scheduled to be here, but he's unable to be with us here today as planned. And so please wish him well because he's feeling a little under the weather today. And so we're going to get started. Before our students begin asking their questions, just a few housekeeping items. Our students will be asking questions of the panelists today, and then each of our panelists will have the opportunity to answer each of the questions. And I've asked them, despite what they might want to do, to keep their responses somewhat brief and concise so that everyone gets the opportunity to answer those questions and we stay on track today. If any of you out there attending and viewing our program today would like to ask a question of our panelists, you can do so in the chat or the Q&A feature. And if we have time at the end, I will ask questions from those that have been submitted. So we are missing one of our students today. Christian couldn't be with us. So we're gonna move to Daniel and have you get started, Daniel. Daniel Salazar from Muscatine Community College. Please share with us your question.
Wonderful. Hi, guys. Thank you, senators, representatives, candidates, and other guys for being here. It's a pleasure. So, according to the Iowa K-12 state standards in social studies, there is no necessary requirement for multiculturalism and multiculturalism education. Now, it's defined as an educational philosophy that focuses on celebrating cultural differences while also recognizing the importance of challenging all forms of discrimination based on race, gender, age, religion, ability, or sexual orientation. So, the question is, would you support adding some type of multiculturalism requirement to the K-12 social studies standards of Iowa, and why?
Great question, Daniel. So in the essence of time, Representative Hall, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay? If I can see a thumbs up? Yeah? Well, thank you for the question, and really thanks everybody also for the invitation to join. It's exciting to know that all of our community colleges are partnered up for this event, and I think it's a really great idea. You know, as far as K through 12 course requirements and curriculum, I think that there is definitely a place for us to incentivize and encourage school districts to make sure that multiculturalism and also a true and accurate reading of American history is integrated into the curriculum. Not all of it has been a happy or a pretty process, and I think that the more we know about our own history, the better we are to address challenges moving forward. The last two different areas that we have added a curricular requirement to K through 12 schools was computer coding and financial literacy. And both of those actually took a lot of work, and I think were a bigger hurdle than some people expected, just because adding new requirements also means that you have to take certain requirements away in order to make sure that students have the time and ability to fit those additional classes into their full course load. If we did not necessarily have a course requirement, but just made sure that multiculturalism was integrated into the curriculum, and especially our social studies curriculum, I think that might actually do a lot more to make sure that the coursework reflected that as a value as opposed to just having an additional course requirement. It's getting a little bit tight just in terms of what we ask our students to do in order to graduate, and there are already quite a number of different requirements asked of them. So I lean toward probably working with school districts or having the State Department of Education incentivize and also require, as new curriculum is purchased for those districts, that multiculturalism is integrated in there and very clear and well represented.
Thank you. JD, do you have a response here?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. So I think a lot of this will be and changing things would go through the state rather than the federal. But one of the things that I'm coming at this with is we're on the middle of a 374 town tour, going to every single town in Iowa's 4th congressional district. I'm coming to you from our Campaign Winnebago RV. And so what we're seeing is that this area, which is getting more and more diverse, my own high school, when I graduated, was 4% minority. Now it's 24% Latino. And when I was blessed enough to play baseball, and in my minor league baseball days, that's where I really was able to, didn't matter where my shortstop came from, didn't matter who my left fielder voted for. It was, we worked together for that common goal. But we learned so much about each other's history, and I think it made us all better. And I think what we're seeing in politics especially is a lack of understanding, and it's us versus them type of mentality, when we all should be lifting each other up. And I think where do we start with that is learning about multiculturalism and the diversity of the United States and the beauty of it. And so I think it would be something that we should really look forward to and embrace. And so thank you for the question, Daniel.
Super. Thank you for that answer. Joma, do you have a response for Daniel?
Yes, I definitely do. Yeah, so once again, like everyone said, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to take part in this time with you all. And I appreciate your question, Daniel, and I do agree. I think that, there does need to be changes made, that we do need to be more inclusive and more encompassing with our history, with our K-12 education, keeping it specific to your question, but then also at a college level, at a collegiate level as well. But I'm definitely a proponent of changing standards. More so, I would have to say how, like the how we do that would probably take time. It would be nice to have something mandated at a state level, but I think that would take a lot of time to actually work through that process. And I would hope that we'll be able to work with local districts as well, so that superintendents and teachers and across the board actually have the value to teach from a curriculum that is all encompassing, that is not as slanted. And I know, being a product of mainly public education myself, except for, college life, that, a lot of times our history is very ethnocentric as Americans. So I definitely more inclusive. I definitely would like to see paradigms and more cultures being included, but the actual walking out, putting legs to it, the how would take time. I don't have that, a clear plan to do that, but I'm definitely willing to talk about it and to get the ball rolling. So thanks for your question. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your response. Representative Wells, John, what can you add to the conversation?
Well, thank you. Thanks all for being here today, this afternoon. It's been it's already been a good couple minutes, and looking forward to hearing the questions. Looking here, I guess I would have to opt out and say I would not be in favor of doing that. And for the simple fact of kind of what Representative Hall had just briefly said, it's very difficult to start moving things around and putting new stuff into our curriculum. Back in the 60s, we had, a half page worth of duties that the schools must perform. Today we have 3 pages, single spaced, that our schools must perform. We have added so many different additional duties and responsibilities to schools that we're kind of watering down the curriculum itself. And so I'd be more in favor of making sure that our history is true, that we're teaching the correct history, but also going back to the basics and teaching civics and how the country actually is run versus just a broad brush of what we're doing right now, where we're having kind of generalities of how the government is being run and other kind of
Iowa's economy strong and develop the life skills necessary to succeed in achieving advanced degrees. With per student funding for community colleges far below that for private and regent colleges, what efforts do you support in closing the funding gap for such a crucial piece of Iowa's educational system?
Thanks, Carrie. Representative Wills, do you want to go first on this one?
Thank you, Carrie. That's a great question. And as a graduate of Iowa Lakes Community College myself, I can tell you that I was set up for success in my 2 years at Iowa Lakes Community College, and gave me definitely the tools that I needed to move forward in future college, or if I didn't want to go on to college for a job. So it's a great, tremendous value that you're giving students, and I want to commend you all for your end. I would definitely say that as far as the funding mechanism for community colleges, when they were originally set up, it was supposed to be 1/3 student, 1/3 state, and 1/3 local government. And since then, the local government piece has been shrunk and the student piece has been increased. So the state is still putting in about 34% of your college education. However, that basically comes down to about $2,800. If I'm remembering all this stuff, so hopefully I'm getting the numbers right, about $2,800 per student. Whereas our Regents universities, we're contributing about $10,500 per student. I would really like to see that get closer together. Private colleges, on the other hand, are about $4,100 per student. And so community colleges are basically getting less from the state than both the private and the Regents universities. But in the same sense, 83% of the students that attend community colleges will stay here in Iowa. And so it's a tremendous value, return on our value if we invest in community college students. Whereas our Regents University students, only 48% stay here in Iowa. So I question, why are we spending $10,500 per student for university students when half of them will leave the state versus only 2 hours? Find that there needs to be more equity. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Joma, do you have a response to share with us on this?
Yes, I certainly do. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. So thank you for your question. I would say that we do just need to look more into the allocation of funds and how the money is being spent. I know there is a variance of needs from county to county, but here, being a potential representative for Clinton County, I know we want to get better paying jobs and we want our young people to actually stay in the area as opposed to go to more metropolitan type communities. We want to keep some of our young people here and to help reinvest in our community. And I think a lot of people that go to the community college, they do that. And there are a lot of work trade students, because I also do substitute teach at the high school level. You know, the state's starting to invest in more of the work study, work trade school for those students, you know, usually are male and sometimes there are some females, but they're an overwhelming population of young men who want to work with their hands and go to trade school and then start making money right away as opposed to getting their 4-year degree. But then as well, the community college, there's a lot of just different types of students, from nursing to teaching students that go there. And so I would just say I want to sit down and look at the budget and look at the allocation and see how much money we are putting in at a state level, but then also get the county, get the local government involved as well, and see what we can do to really address that situation, because we do want to make sure that our community college is well funded. Because I noticed that a lot of students who do attend the community college here in Clinton, they actually stay in town. They actually work themselves through school, and then they usually tend to stay here after they graduate. So that's a great question. I would definitely put time and energy into it and see that we are funding it. So thanks for your question.
Super. Thanks for your response. JD, do you have something to add?
Yeah, again, coming from a federal standpoint, I feel one thing we do need to do is make sure that college is affordable for everybody, and you know, community colleges are a great gateway for a lot of people. It shouldn't matter your zip code, doesn't matter what high school you went to. You should have the opportunity to further your education if you so desire. And Carrie at Iowa Lakes, what they were, that program, what they were able to do with the wind energy and everything, I think is a spotlight of one of the biggest successes of Iowa community colleges. And so as we see where the nation is going and where the economy is going, we need to make sure that we have a workforce ready for it. And I think community colleges are so adaptable and leading the way on a lot of these issues. Up in this neck of the woods, and I'm just a few miles. In fact, our next stop is Estherville. But hearing from folks up here, you know, there's certain things that I think a lot of folks don't realize in other parts of the district or other parts of the state, where just to get a refrigerator repair person to come out is a 3-month wait in some of these parts. And so community colleges and the trades tend to be the places where we can fulfill some of these gaps and everything. And so I personally am looking to whether it's invest. We can't cut corridors in education, bar none. And so pushing forward to making sure that when kids come out of college that we're debt free as well. So that's the direction I would like to go.
Thanks. Representative Hall?
Thank you. I don't have too much to add. I think my fellow panelists really gave a solid overview of kind of the history of community college funding, as well as obviously some of the things we value here in the state. Keeping students who get their education in Iowa here in Iowa, I think, is extremely important, and our community colleges do a great job of that. We also know that especially in economically tough times like we're in right now, more students are looking at community college as a way to upskill or further their education, and it's clearly one of the most affordable options that we have here in the state. So for me, what Representative Wills mentioned about the original funding formula for community colleges remains important. If we have got out of balance in terms of local or state support compared to that of what students are contributing, I think that it's good for us to put an eye on that and make sure that those funding levels come back within balance.
Great question, Carrie. Thank you all for your answers. We have Evelyn Falk from Hawkeye Community College has our next question. Take it away, Evelyn.
Thank you all for being here and taking time and speaking with us. My question is, what sparked your interest in being a legislator for Iowa?
We're going to go back to our Representative Hall and who just answered, and let you lead us off.
Great. Well, thank you, Evelyn. That's a fun question, and really, I think, you know, for anybody who has chosen to run for office, I think it's really important for us to remind ourselves why we originally got into it. For me, I ran in 2010, which was the last big recession that had really hit our state and the nation. I was 24 years old, and a big issue for me was actually the fact that many of my friends growing up here in Sioux City didn't feel like they really had a lot of opportunity and economic reason for them to stay here. They saw factories closing down in the recession. They saw a lot of tough times hitting our community. And it was important to me to try and figure out a way that I could at least meaningfully make a difference. And I thought that it was important, rather than sit on the sideline, to try and at least impact some change or help my community during a time of need. And so that's why I tossed my hat in the ring. Originally, when they asked me, I actually turned them down and I said, I don't think so. I don't know that this is a great idea, but thank goodness I did throw my hat in the ring, and it's really been a special adventure ever since.
Thanks, Chris. Representative Wills, I'm going to go to you next and maybe jump around a little bit. What has sparked your interest?
Thank you. So I guess ever since I was a student at Iowa Lakes Community College, I was always involved in groups, and I was in the environmental club at ILCC. and was became the president of the ILCC Environmental Club. Didn't really necessarily want to, but I got nominated and accidentally won. Always been kind of lived in the state of Iowa, always been involved in the political arena. But just as kind of the background, just so happened about 6.5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now, she was 91 years old, kind of the matriarch of Dickinson County politics, came up to me. She said, "John, you're going to run for Jeff Smith's seat and you're going to win." And I said, "I didn't know Jeff Smith was not running, and I'm definitely not running for that seat." Well, 6 years later, here I am in my 6th year. And so I did run. Basically, the reason I ran is I basically told her no. But about a month later, my wife and I were both watching TV. And about the same time, we said, why doesn't somebody do something in some kind of political story that was on TV? And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I can do something. So my stance is that, I kind of was reluctant in my movement forward in the political arena, but ever since I've been able to make a difference, and I've been able to listen to people such as you and understand what your thoughts and needs are, and I've made a difference. And so I guess along the way, I always say it doesn't matter what you do in the political realm, as long as you do something. As long as you pay attention to those who are running, as long as you vote, as long as you put a sign out in your yard or do something. It doesn't matter what you do, but I think that you should always be involved in politics in some way. If you don't, basically you're giving up that freedom. You're giving up the ability for you to express your viewpoints and thoughts, because we are a representative democracy or a representative republic. And in order for you to be represented, you have to let your voice be heard. And so that's kind of the big thing that I would say. And that's how I got started. Thank you. Fun question.
Great. Joma, can you tell us what has sparked your interest?
Yes, I sure can. Yeah, thanks for the question. So I originally, I think it was about 1.5 years ago when I first had the idea. But I'm a mom, and I've been working in the community as a teacher, as a coach, as a pastor. Had different job roles. But as time gone by, I started to see more and more how government really controlled our daily lives, and really was the deciding factor of what we could and what we couldn't do. And I found myself becoming a little bit more frustrated. I started to have more complaints within myself as to what type of legislation was being passed and how it directly affected my home life or my family life, or it directly affected the young people that I taught or led. And so for me, it became an issue of, I feel like we need our government to be healthy. We need our government to be whole. We need our government to have morals and conviction. And it got to the point where it started to kind of keep me up at night, where I was like, oh man, I feel like we're going down a slippery slope, and I'm not liking where we're headed. And then one night I just had the revelation, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do something about it. Maybe I shouldn't just be part of the problem of someone who would complain or someone who's aggravated. Maybe I need to actually step out into an arena and let my voice be heard and try and be a quality representative for the people in my region and people in my district, the people that I care about and I serve anyway on a daily basis. So that was my motivation. And then I started getting more involved with our local central committee. And one thing led to another, and they said, we think you should run. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to. So that's what inspired me to go ahead and put my name on the ballot this year. Thanks.
Wonderful. JD, tell us about your spark.
Yeah, I would say there's two. When I was 10 years old and growing, you God bless my mom, she things. And I was living out of state at the time, and she goes, "You need to move back to Iowa and you need to take care of our farm." And that was the last conversation I had with her, and she passed away shortly after that. And that started a snowball effect. So when I moved back to Sioux City, as actually what Chris was alluding to, I was one of those people who chased opportunity elsewhere. After my baseball career, there wasn't much in Sioux City. And then when I moved back, I looked in the Sioux City Journal for a month for a job, and the best job I could find out and you wonder why moving to Des Moines. Ultimately, what stemmed from a conversation with my grandma led me to not only go run for Congress, but to fight for protecting but all of our farms and our local community. That's kind of how it all started.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for your service to all Iowans across the state, all that are joining us and all that hopefully will watch our recording later. So our next question comes from Jessica McKenna from Hawkeye Community College. Jessica, take it away.
Hi. So this question is kind of directed towards everyone who's traveled a lot in the past, but what made you want to come back to Iowa, and what made you interested and passionate enough to the point where you wanted to be in a position of leadership?
Great question. I don't know everyone's background so well to know if they have left us and then returned, other than I do know that JD did leave and return and just alluded to that in his last answer. Maybe JD, you can start us off on the answer to this.
Absolutely. So I was blessed enough to play baseball. I played at Morningside College before I had a chance to get drafted. I turned it down and went to finish my career at Nebraska and graduated from there. From there, I got to play baseball in 7 different countries. I lived and worked in Minneapolis for a little bit, on and off between baseball stints, and then when I was done, and then played one more time, and I got to play in Germany. And when I came back, I ended up finding a job out in Seattle. I've never been to Seattle, and I just said yes. And so I've been able to see around. And what the amazing thing is when I was living out in the state of Washington, we'd meet up to go watch either the Hawkeyes or Cyclones, like sports events, and you'd meet all these Iowans out there. And the majority of them would love to come back, but there's not the opportunity for a lot of these folks. And it's amazing to see all what they're doing. And so that was part of the process. And ever since I've ran, the amount of people who said, "Oh, I'm originally from the 4th district," or "My grandma's from the 4th district," or every little thing like that. And then for them to come back here and see like, oh, that Main Street's not what it used to be. And we talk about when you love your country, you fight for the people who make it work, the teachers, the farmers, the truck drivers, the nurses, so many people who are working, doing everything right and struggling to get ahead in this district. And that's why I wanted to change that. And I want to change what's happening out here. It's getting harder and harder to live in these rural areas. And so that's something I'm extremely passionate about, and decided, if I don't do this, then who will? And it's one of those things where we're seeing pretty clearly where are we going to go with the next economy, the Iowa economy. And I want to be part of that. I want to shape that and make it so when you guys are full force in the workforce, we have that vision of where we want to go. And so that's a huge part of my reasoning. And being a 5th generation Iowan, first to be raised in town, I understand the difference between Sioux City and somewhere like Paulina, and understand like what it's like to grow up in a small town, but also what it's like to grow in Sioux City. And so I really, for me, all my travels, meeting so many different people, it's really allowed me to be a bridge to so many different people from different backgrounds. And so that's a huge part of why I decided to run.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Joma, do you have thoughts to add to this?
Yes, I do. And that's a great question. I'm enjoying the questions. So, yeah, I have been all over the world as well. I well, I went to college in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then from college years, I stayed in the region and I worked. I coached volleyball at a university, and then I also was a youth pastor at a church. And from Minneapolis, I was in Sierra Leone, West Africa, Liberia, Israel, Egypt, the United Kingdom. I was in Jamaica a little bit, and I was working with kids who were orphaned from war and doing some different types of holistic relief work with them. And then when I came back to the States, and I lived in the States for the past a little over 10 years, I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and Los Angeles, California. And so I've been either a big city girl my whole life, or I was overseas working in more war-torn or third world populations. And so when I originally came back, I mean, I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago first, and then we moved to Rockford later. So it's about an hour and a half from where we live now in Clinton. But I had family that live, I have family that live in town, and my sister actually works at the community college, and I know she loves the region, and she came here when Ashford was here. Then she was on staff, and then she's on staff at the community college now. Her name's Cameron Busker, by the way. So, but what brought me back, what brought me to Iowa, what kept me in Iowa was just this more, one, the Midwest, because the Midwest is more family oriented, and I have small children. Two, families here, but when I was here, I was actually contemplating, it was my plan to only stay for a season and go back to Kansas City, Missouri. I know, shout out to Kimmy, yes, someone just said in the message. It was my plan to go back to Kansas City, Missouri and be a police officer, because Kansas City had become home for me. But when I was here staying with family for a while, I just felt this attraction. I kind of fell in love with this slower pace of life. I was teaching at the high school, where we have one major public high school and two private in town. And I haven't been at a town this small in a long time. And I just love the camaraderie. I love the first name basis you had with most of the people in town. And I saw the beauty in Clinton. I feel like Clinton has a lot of potential. We have a lot of open, vacant buildings, and you can tell that we were at one time a very bustling, thriving community and economy. But now, at least over here in our region, we've lost almost a third of our population in the past 50 years. And so I want to help revitalize it. And I think that we have a lot of good things going. And what kept me here is just good people, just good down to earth people. Got to know a lot of the families from the high school, and from there, I just kind of fell in love with the slower pace of life, and I liked that people's motives and people's intentions were just to have a good quality of life for them and for their children, and I can really respect that. And so that's why I decided to make Iowa home. And then 2.5 years later, here I am running for office. So thanks for your question.
Thank you. Representative Wills, do you want to contribute on this one?
Sure. So with serving 25 years in the military, I, of course, moved around quite a bit and have lived in quite a few different places in the country and the world. You know, I was an infantryman and a cavalry scout in the military, retired as a first sergeant. So I saw a lot of places. I saw a lot of things. And when I got out, or kind of decided that it was time for my military career to start ratcheting down and become slower, my first thought was, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to move back to Northwest Iowa, where I love. And, you know, I spent 8-9 years outside of Iowa during that 25 years. And that I was out, and he died. And I'm like, well, I'd never met either one of them before. And this was in a larger town, a larger city. And that just wouldn't happen in Northwest Iowa. And so I just really feel like the camaraderie and the neighborhood, the sense of being, you know, part of society and being able to talk to one another. You know, so that's when I came back. I started getting back involved in the local politics part of things. And really one of the things that I decided to run for when I ran for this office, and I'm still fighting for, is that our kids don't need to move out of the state to get a high-paying job. They don't need to move to Minneapolis or Chicago or Denver. And we really were on the track to achieving that, where we had 2.7% unemployment. Wages were ratcheting up very quickly, and we were having unheard of unemployment and wage increase until COVID hit, and then that kind of put everything on a halt. However, we're already back down to 6% unemployment, and things are starting to look really good for the state of Iowa. But that's the main reason that I did come back to the state of Iowa. Iowa is a great place. If you're not from Iowa, I would say stay here because I was going big places and just.
Thank you. Representative Hall, Chris, can you add to this?
Sure, and I'll just briefly add to it. Thank you for the question, Jessica. And I guess my view is a little bit different, even though I've traveled plenty. Iowa has always been home for me. And the perch, you know, the way that I'll try to answer it is from a perch as somebody who's lived here now their entire life, but also seen many of my friends move away only to come back in recent years. I think that Iowa, and one of the reasons that a lot of young people eventually choose to set their roots here in the state is because it's an affordable place to live, along with a lot of the strong community, kind of fabric that others have mentioned. I think that those things, you know, where your family lives, where your close friends are, an opportunity to live in an affordable place and also hopefully have a high quality of life. Those are some of the factors that I know are important in trying to set your roots up. And I think those are great places for state government to focus. If we can make Iowa a vibrant and diverse and beautiful place to grow up and for people to set their roots up, I think we'll continue to see growth.
Thank you. Wonderful. Great responses. Great questions from our Iowa Community College students. We are getting close to the close of our time together. We did get a question from the Q&A section that I thought was a good one to maybe end with, and I hope that everyone can stay for just a moment longer to hear the answers. This question comes from Zane. Zane asks, the pandemic has impacted Iowa's communities in ways many did not expect. Since Iowa Community Colleges are Iowa's workforce trainer, how do you plan to support their impact on reviving local economies and getting Iowans back to work? And I see Representative Wills answered a little in the chat, and I appreciate that. But maybe we can start off, Representative Hall, you just answered, but maybe we could start with you. And
Yep, and since we're also winding down here in the near future, I just want to say thank you again to the community colleges, to Greta and to Mike Brown for helping to organize this and the invitation. Your question is spot on, and there doesn't need to be a whole lot more added to it, because what you've identified is correct. Our community colleges play just a crucial role in the state, not only being located in, in every county, in everyone's backyard, having that all access component of education where people are able to find it no matter where they live in the state, but also helping to connect people to jobs and employers and helping them to upskill. COVID is a curveball, and one that we hope passes quickly so that people can get back to work. But for people who also may have had that curveball land directly in their lap and they're trying to find the next thing to do, or use this time in order to find maybe a new line of work or a new adventure to pursue in education, I think we need to make sure that community colleges are sustained even when our economy and our state budget are going through tough times, because they happen to also be the venue that a lot of people seek out in order to find success and to hopefully provide for their families in a good and meaningful way as much as their community. We just need to make sure that colleges are sustained and find that funding stream even during tough times.
Great. And I know someone who knows a lot about curveballs, as Representative Hall said, and that's JD. So JD, can you enlighten us on this?
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I think, you know, we don't come out of this economically until we get control of the virus. And as we're seeing, especially in the northwest corner of the state right now, we don't have a very good control. And so once we get out of this, I feel we do need an on-ramp into a lot of different things. The amount of small businesses that I talked to in the last week on our 374 town, every town tour, and they're struggling, and a lot of them they don't know if they're going to make it if this that can bring new people in and things like that. And so I am deeply concerned about where this district's going economically. We see more and more concentration, and that's why one of the biggest things I'm pushing for are that we could be the epicenter of 21st century resilient agriculture. And what that means is that if the farmers are doing well, then the folks in town, they'll go into town, spend a few dimes, and that creates business. Then the smaller towns lead into the bigger towns. And so I feel there's a two-prong approach to this. One, we got to bring technology into this district on a much farther scale than what we have right now. This pandemic has really put a spotlight on making sure that whether it's education, whether it's doing things like this, small businesses, telemedicine, there's going to be a lot of need for technology. The other part of it that is something I'm extremely passionate about is enforcing our antitrust laws to allow our farmers to stay on their land and make a dime. Right now in rural Iowa, corporations are sucking the wealth out of this district in a lot of different ways. We need to invest in this district, and it starts with investing in education and community colleges so we have the workforce needed. So with that, again, thank you so much for having me. I really deeply appreciate this time.
Thanks, JD. Joma, can you add to this topic?
Yes, I sure can. Yeah, so we are, first off, thank you for the question. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I know here in Clinton, we have a lot of different people that are students that are, some from the high school level, people that are getting a jump on their college career while they're still in high school, whether they're homeschooled or whether they're in public school or private. So I definitely want to, talk more with all those involved, whether they're parents, whether they're part of the school board, or whether they're part of the Clinton Community School Districts, or even at a state level, talking about how we can keep our community college well funded and also create more on-ramps for people and different types of students. So not just those that are going in, straight out of high school or already working in their junior, senior year, but those that are adults and the adult students, those who may already be having careers or they're changing careers during the pandemic. So I think this is the perfect time to reassess, our relationship in every way with the state and the local government and the community school and the community college, but then also make sure that they're afloat, but also not just keep it afloat, but have it thrive. I know someone mentioned small businesses, but I know even a lot of business owners around the area in different industries, whether it's the food industry, whether it's health and wellness. I'm thinking of certain chiropractors right now in town who would like to do apprenticeships, and I know a community college would be a great way to bridge that gap to help train. That's just one example of a field where there's need, and keeping everything at a local level, we can connect the dots from those who need to hire and those who need to go to school, those who need to be trained, etc. So I definitely am open to the conversation, but I would definitely, want to make sure that the community college is well run and well funded, and going forward, all the challenges, whether there's any more surges or spikes, but wherever the dust settles, we need to maintain it. So thanks for your time. Mm-hmm.
Representative Wills, you answered in the chat, but let's hear you elaborate on your response to this one.
Maybe I can be better at saying things and fast. I guess that's the same thing. A fast and ready workforce. Community colleges are, in my mind, vital to the state of Iowa as far as apprenticeships. Future Ready Iowa is a perfect example of that. It allows for colleges to develop programs very quickly and specifically for a type of job need that a business might have or that sort of thing. Last Dollar Scholar is a program that we've already implemented, and each one of you probably has participated or has had the opportunity to participate in that. And so we've got some really terrific programs already there. The community colleges are poised and ready to go. All they got to do is get the students in there. All they got to do is get the businesses to come to them and say, hey, we need you to help us with this job type. And the community colleges will respond, and they will be the best in the state of Iowa at getting our workforce trained up and ready to go. And so I'm bullish on community colleges. They're the best thing that we have in the state of Iowa. And I really appreciate this forum and that everybody out there has been listening and participating.
Wonderful. And we appreciate all of you. I would like to thank our students, first and foremost, for their questions and participation. It can be challenging to work with all of your class schedules and the busyness that you're experiencing, so thank you for taking the time. I would like to thank our panelists that were able to join us. Your time is very valuable, and I know your lives are busy as well, so thank you for making Iowa community colleges, our students, our faculty, and our staff a priority in your lives.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
doing
you,
that.
Greta, as well, for setting this all up and kind of being the go-between with all the emails and back and forth.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. And so thank you also to our people who are watching, our folks at our community colleges, our Iowa Community College staff, faculty, and students. I hope this was educational and informative. We are recording it, so if you have people that you'd like to share it with, we will be sharing the recording information with our Iowa Community College Student Activities Coordinators. So reach out to those folks for a recording of this. And then I would like to just take a moment to remind everybody to make sure that you're registered and prepared to vote. If anybody watching or listening needs more information on registering to vote, you can go to vote.gov and you can find voting and other election resources. And as we all know, regardless of our political party affiliation, where we're located in the state, or our position on the issues, the one thing we can all agree on is the importance of voting. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, bye.